Well, a local weatherman said and did something that caused Katie's 7-year-old son, Henry, to burst into tears and to run into his room and slam the door.
And proceed to stay there for a solid 30.
Yeah.
Solid 30. So in the greatest tragedy, travesty, whatever you want to call it, of my husband's life, somehow or another, our son, Henry, has become, for the time being, a Duke fan.
Wow.
My husband is not a Carolina fan. He is a bleeding red till forever and ever and ever NC State Wolfpack fan.
Yeah.
And look, they haven't been good in a long time.
No, it's been about 30 years.
But he stands strong.
True fan, which I respect.
Went to NC State, true fan, just accepts that hurt and devastation are a part of his life. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
I believe, and you guys tell me if this is true, because I don't. I went to Appalachian State, and App doesn't even exist in our home. It's like Wolfpack or nothing.
Yeah.
And it's true.
That's a shame.
It does hurt me a little bit, but also I don't care.
Yeah.
So, as a father, I think that when we found out we were having a son, and our daughter too, I think that my daughter is like the most loyal Wolfpack fan of all time. But thinking great, I'm going to teach him what I know, that he'll grow up and be a Wolfpack fan, right?
Just naturally.
He's a Duke fan.
At a young age, too.
Yes, at a young age.
And that's what happens. People are like, did you even go to Duke? It's like, no, you pick your team when you're 7.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, if you go to a school and then you adopt that as your second team, maybe you end up liking him. Okay, maybe. But
yeah.
Some people are like, you're a Carolina fan? You didn't go to Carolina. I'm like, I chose him when I was 8.
That is surprising,
Yeah.
though, and you too with your son, and with Ben, that a son that young is choosing something the opposite of their father.
That is kind of, yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is. But also, Henry is not. He is he is a Duke fan for sure, but it's a lot of outside influence.
Yeah.
And he also is one day the biggest Bengals fan that has ever lived. The next day he's the biggest Dallas Cowboys fan that has ever. It's like he's finding his way.
Okay, so this may change.
But it might change. But for right now, this was a devastating moment for him.
Is your husband and you, are you buying him Duke gear?
Ben has purchased a
I couldn't do
Duke.
it.
I know.
I just wouldn't do it.
I couldn't do Duke.
I
But
know.
you do,
wouldn't do
you
it.
were a Redskins fan. Your son's not a Redskins fan. So you live here in the Carolinas, and he's not a Carolina fan, but he became a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I've seen him with Kansas
But
City.
they're not a rival, though. If he was a Cowboys fan, I'm like, nope, you can like him, but I'm not buying you
That's
Cowboys
different.
stuff.
Yeah, it is just a true testament, I think, to Ben's. Not that it's other people don't have this, but for him, he's just like, I want to make him happy. Okay, if that's what it is, that's what it is.
Why don't you get a Duke belt and whip him in it? With it. Spank him with it.
You like Duke?
You like Duke? How much you like Duke now?
So we have asked him before, where does this come from? Like, why Duke? And we do have friends who, and Henry is friends with the boys of this family, whose grandfather was the first African American surgeon at Duke, and theirs runs like you know what I mean? Like they're never going to part from Duke, and so of course those boys have the natural passion for, and so Henry, that rubs off on Henry, and then Henry's like all in, which is admirable, all in.
Yeah.
Just Ben hates it, but anyway. So it was on the weekends. I love all the news stations around here, but I am a WXII fiend. Every single weekend, that's what we're watching. The kids know that they can watch whatever they want out in the living room, but mom and dad are drinking coffee and we're watching the news, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
If you come into my room, you will be watching the news.
You've come a long way from the bar days.
I'll tell you, this has been
so lit.
No, this has been. You should try it. This has been since I read the newspaper. I go to the library.
Yeah.
I watch the news. It's who I am, and I have always been this way.
Yeah.
Always.
You have that side of you that's an old soul.
It's
Her
true.
soul is in the 60s.
Yeah.
It's true. I do. And thankfully, my husband just goes along with it. So we're watching the news, right? And WXII has a brand new newscaster, weather guy. His name is Dylan Hudler.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it was the morning after the big Duke Carolina game, Carolina Duke game, however you want to put it, right?
It's fine, either way.
And Henry had come into our room. We were watching the news. We're listening to the meteorologist go on about the weather. And all of a sudden, the news anchor and this weatherman start to do a cheer for Carolina because they're Carolina fans.
Oh, yeah. What a station.
That ain't fake news.
They
What
were
a
like,
channel.
can we do a little cheer? On the live on the news.
Yeah.
That's that weekend. That weekend.
They let a little bit more
Yes.
slide.
Yeah,
No
well,
rules.
No one's watching. I
There
mean,
are no rules.
The bosses might not be watching. Is what I mean.
That's normally when they
That's
have
what it is.
Dave on. So, yeah, they don't care.
Which truthfully is like my favorite when Dave is on. 'Cause I'm
Yeah.
like, oh look, I have some. We have
Weather
something in common.
Dave is on our sister station.
When you said the station, I was like, ooh, that's Dave's time slot. And I was like, wait, he was traveling. So it was not Dave.
No, it was the new one. And so when they do the cheer and they're doing a little dance and like, go Carolina, go on the news, Henry jumps off of our bed, bursts into tears, runs across the hall to his room, slams the door. And
I respect it.
Yeah.
That's when you're all in.
So Ben and I were like, whatever. We drink our coffee, and then
This is
we.
good news to get
He'll
some
be
peace,
fine.
peace and quiet for a little bit.
You'll be all right.
I'm like,
Maybe he'll stay for an hour.
right. Great. Now I can't hear about all the murder that we have,
Yeah.
And so finally, Ben and I draw straws to see like who's gonna go check.
Oh,
on
I
him.
would have been like, oh, they just made another chair. Get another half
Come
hour.
watch these highlights.
Be like, State didn't lose last night.
Oh wait, they did.
Oh yeah, they did.
Probably.
So I go and check on him, and he's just laying in his bed, and like I think his blanket is kind of over his head, you know. And I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "I'm just trying to calm my sadness." And he said, "And now I don't want to go to that weatherman's wedding anyway."
What wedding?
Wait, what?
Oh.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What? Like how does this
Wedding?
even? Yeah. And then I realized, so we are good friends and coworkers with Christian Morgan, who is on. He's the weatherman
Oh,
for
yes.
WFMY.
Yeah.
And his wedding announcement, or like the
Yes.
save the date, is up on our fridge.
Oh.
And so Henry, in his mind, thought that was the same guy, and he was like, "And I don't want to go to his wedding anymore."
I love it. That's right.
This is the most delusional conversation I've ever had. And I said, "Henry, that guy that you were watching that did the cheer for Carolina was not Christian Morgan." He was like, "Yes, it is."
You know, I just work with them, but you know. That's hilarious. But that's so relatable as someone who grew up still a Carolina fan.
Yes.
I mean, I remember, I think I missed school one day, and my friends that were all Carolina fans, one time we got upset by Duke, and I'm like, I'm not going to school. I can't face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone, like, I was the number, like, people were like, he's the Carolina fan. So when we lost, State and Duke fans were like, y'all suck.
Yeah.
And I also had my friend Dion years ago in high school. This is before you can like screen print and all this stuff.
Mhm.
Carolina blew out Duke by like 27, and both teams were really good. And he made like Duke suck shirts, and he handmade them and brought them to school for us all to
And
wear.
everybody wore
And
them.
we're just like walking
Yeah.
around the school. I mean, it's like
I will tell you,
Yes.
it does seem like
intense.
from not being originally here.
And me either, Jason. So I don't. I get it, but I don't feel it.
Yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
it to me it appears that there's a lot more Carolina fans than
there
Duke.
are.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Naturally.
so if you are I think the school's a lot smaller too. But
A lot
Oh,
smaller.
yeah, yeah.
if you're a Duke fan, I respect them a little bit more for sticking up to all these other fans.
Well, because listen, I know y'all
Yeah.
are not going to like this, but
It's a true
they
Jason.
win too.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Yes.
it's
It's
like-
not hard being a Duke or Carolina
Yeah,
fan.
and it
No.
was not. The game was not a blowout
No.
at all.
Oh,
so
we-
now a win
totally
is a
co-
win.
We totally controlled and dominated the game.
a
But yeah.
win is a win.
Right.
But it's like, they're excellent in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, they're
that makes
two-
it fun.
Two of the best.
Plus, they had Grace and Allen.
Yeah, that's Jason's
yeah,
favorite.
you
They used
did
to
love
trip
him.
people and get in trouble. That's when Jason started liking Duke.
Yeah.
Because he identified, he said,
Yeah.
I would be Grayson Allen. And Jason would be a Duke fan if he grew up here.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
would be. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
Usually-
think so.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you went to a school that's all Carolina and you want to be
Right.
popular. But I just think you would.
Yeah, I would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, like, I went to an elementary school. Shouts out Colfax Elementary. I was a Viking back in the day. And yeah, and the Carolina versus Duke nights were like on a school night was the most intense night of like
Yes.
the year or the week, because even the teachers would get involved. So
Yes.
early on, my mom raised me to be a Carolina fan, and if Duke beat us in the week, I would cry before I went to bed. 'Cause I knew that year would be so terrible. And our teachers, like there was big rivalries between the teachers, Carolina Duke fans, and if Carolina won and your teacher was like a Carolina fan, you would go on a parade through other classes. You'd be like, all right, everyone line up. And then you go to the teacher who's a Duke fan, and you would go parade through her class.
That's incredible.
And vice versa. Like, if you were the Duke, I wish I remember their names. But like the teacher, she was a big Duke fan. She would, come in, get her whole class together, and go to every Carolina fans and go through the class. And then, like, one time, like Carolina lost. I was devastated, and then I can't remember her name, but she came in with her whole class, big Duke fan, and like one of like my friends started crying. He was a Carolina fan while they were parading through the class. Yeah, and it was just it was unprecedented time.
Well, being from Rhode Island originally, and then I moved to Virginia, and of course then North Carolina. I was a part of a restaurant group a while back, and I was shocked to see how packed and insane intense a Carolina and Duke game was compared to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It was way more intense and way more busier than a Super Bowl. That's what's so crazy about here. And especially when it was like a championship type game and they were both in it, it was out of control compared to the most watched sporting event, the Super Bowl. Isn't that?
Yeah.
So we actually have locally probably a bigger time when Duke and Carolina, especially if they're both really good. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and they're both in the top 10. And, I mean, this is – and it was so crazy about the rivalry. Now, overall, Carolina has like 30 or 40 more wins head-to-head, and they have more national championships. Final Four is about the same. No, but it's better. Oh, you're a Duke fan now?
No. I just – one thing I will say, somebody who does not care. I mean, I'm happy. I love the excitement of it all. I love watching my children, start to figure it all out. It's exciting. But I will say, Carolina fans, you are annoying.
Well, you know what?
They are the loudest, most obnoxious, but I get it.
But Duke fans are worse.
But I get it.
Especially when they win.
I'm not saying your son. Duke fans typically overall, historically, and this is based on empirical data, they know the least about basketball.
Whatever.
Like all the guys who played soccer at my school were Duke fans, and they're like, and they start talking about you like, clearly you don't know anything about basketball.
Well, I bet you they were all way hotter than all the other people because typically the boys who play soccer are hot.
Maybe there was one or two, but not my school. My school. No, and you're also there's influence your husband Ben. State fans hate Carolina.
No.
They hate Carolina.
I will tell you this right now. I not grew up, but I lived many years in Winston-Salem, fresh out of college, and I went to a lot of Wake Forest games. And so I really went in at like not knowing very much because I'm not from here. So I didn't really know I was learning the rivalry.
Right.
And I would watch, and I can tell you honestly, I found this thought or like noticed that Duke fans are constantly on the ground, or not fans, but Duke players constantly on the floor.
Flopping.
Like they constantly flop on the ground. Those are things that I would notice. And then I'd be like, damn, Carolina fans are annoying. Yeah. Because it's just.
There's a lot of us too. Yeah.
But that's just how I put it all together.
Now, we have not forgot about Justin Timberlake tickets. We're doing just a minute.
Yes.
But I don't. I'd be remiss if we didn't. I mean, Matt is such a big Carolina fan. Yeah. He proposed with Carolina players helping him at Chapel Hill.
Oh, well, that was part of our engagement photo session. Yeah, I proposed it, but our engagement photos were taken at the Dean Dome, and two Carolina players, Theo Pinson, local guy, shout out, and Joel Berry were practicing, and we went and got them to come over and take pictures with us during our engagement photo session. And then for our announcement, when we got pregnant with Wyatt, we went back to Chapel Hill in front of the Dean Dome to do it again.
And see, that is so cool.
Nice.
That's such a great story.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember like with my ex, I don't know if you remember, she was from Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to explain this whole thing to her, the whole Carolina Duke thing, because like we were like getting groceries one day, and this country bumpkin kind of guy got out of his car. And maybe not the most sophisticated looking man, but he had a Duke sticker on the back of his trunk. And she was like, I know for a fact there's no way that guy went to Duke. And she was like, I swear I see people with Carolina and Duke tags that have never gone to the colleges before. And I'm like, you don't know about the rivalry? She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say, too, and like ESPN covers it nationwide on like 4 different channels. I mean, it's their highest rated basketball game of the year besides maybe the national championship. Sometimes it's higher than that. But like they'll say the last 100 meetings, Carolina's 150, Duke's 150, and the margin of victory, if you add up all the points, is 2. I mean, it couldn't even be more even of a rivalry.
That's what makes it so exciting.
Gosh, it's amazing.
And people gather for the. You were just talking about how excited you were about seeing how packed the things. I feel like even if you're not at a bar, people are like we're having a party, come over.
Yes.
Like I very seldom hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna like lay low and watch the game tonight."
Right.
No,
Yeah.
it's you are having people over.
And you're like group texting and talking about it. Yeah, it's a big deal.
During the game, I was working with our sister station. They had a comedy show that night, and we were all watching in the green room on our phones the game. And before the comedy show started, Chris Kelly went on stage and joked, "Who wants an update score of the game?" And he got booed because people were filming the game to watch when they got home. They did not want to know what happened. They had their phones off. They wanted no updates, and they're like, "Don't ruin the score!"
They probably thought a lot of cheering. He got booed.
He's like, "All right, I won't give the update. I won't say anything."
My bad.
Jeez.
Whoops.